While yes, horror fans love to see some gloriously gory and terrifying things play out on screen, often just as terrifying, if not more so, when things instead play out off screen. The human imagination is an incredibly powerful thing, and it can drum up nightmare scenarios far more chilling than what most directors could ever dream of. Drop a few seeds of suggestion at what's happening off screen, and the human mind will concoct its own twisted conclusions. So with that in mind, I'm Andrew from What Culture Horror, and here are 10 off-screen horror movie deaths that will haunt you forever. Number 10, Bobby Joe, Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead is great, it's brilliant, it's a smidge daft, it's plenty terrifying, and many view it as the greatest film in the Evil Dead franchise, which is quite the statement. And in this 1987 sequel, one particular kill happens off screen. With Ashley J. Williams and his crew heading out into the woods once again, Bobby Joe is one of those along for the ride this time. And safe to say, things don't go too well for her, with the character having the most unique death of this sequel. For Bobby Joe, she's hemmed in on all sides by a clutch of possessed trees that ensnare her with their branches, before dragging her through the undergrowth at a frantic pace. And with that, Bobby Joe disappears underground, never to be seen again. Number 9, The Bullies, Let the Right One In. School bullies are not nice people, often ruining lives and leaving long-standing trauma that some victims never fully shake off. However, even the most vile tormentors likely don't deserve the same fate as the bullies from Let the Right One In. Released in 2008, this stunning Swedish picture follows the plight of Oscar, a young boy who befriends a girl named Ellie. All is going extremely well for these two new pals. Well, until Ellie reveals that she's actually a vampire. That does come in handy though when Oscar is on the receiving end of some bullying at school, coming to a head when Oscar has his head held underwater at a local swimming pool. While Oscar struggles underwater, the greater damage is taking place on the surface, as in a beautifully shot sequence, Ellie arrives and kills most of the thugs, all while the camera remains focused on Oscar's submerged face. Bloody brilliant revenge. Number 8, Tito, Climax. Argentinian director Gaspar Noé doesn't exactly do things by the book, which is why there was a mixture of anticipation and dread when he decided to make a horror movie in 2018. Climax is about a troupe of French dancers who, after accidentally ingesting psychoactive drugs, have to battle their own deteriorating minds as they try to survive the night. Along for the ride is Tito, the young son of troupe leader Emmanuel, who accidentally drinks the spiked sangria responsible for this whole mess. To protect her boy from harm, Emmanuel locks Tito in a room. Unfortunately, this just so happens to be the room containing all of the building's electrics. And when there's a blackout later in the film, it's revealed that this happened because in his drug-induced state, Tito accidentally tripped a power supply, electrocuting himself in the process. The death of a child in any movie is always tough, but this was made even worse because it's the boy's own mother was responsible, with Emmanuel's overwhelming grief subsequently causing her to take her own life. Number 7, Hutch, The Ritual. 2017 folk horror The Ritual is definitely not one to watch if you're planning on going camping. 4 friends from the UK take a vacation to Sweden to pay tribute to a fallen friend, but a shortcut through a forest proves to be the start of their downfall, as this particular forest is home to a cult who worship an ancient Norse figure called Moder, a son of Loki. No, not the Tom Hiddleston one. When the group wake up one night to realise that one of the fellas, Hutch, is missing, they do eventually find Hutch, though they probably wish they hadn't, for he's discovered impaled on a tree, having had his insides ripped out, which is certainly a grim way to go. Number 6, Misha Lecter, Hannibal Rising. The 5th Hannibal Lecter movie, 2007's Hannibal Rising, explores the younger days of the iconic character, picking things up in a World War II era Lithuania. With the Lecter family holding up in a hunting lodge to escape the Nazis, things take a turn for the worse when an Allied tank is blown up, resulting in the death of everyone but Hannibal and his younger sister Misha. Forced to fend for themselves, things then become even more sinister when a group of SS soldiers arrive looking for food. Revealed in flashbacks later in the movie, not only did these soldiers kill Misha Lecter, but they also ate the girl, meaning Hannibal was forced to watch his only surviving relative be butchered in front of his eyes. Number 5, The Grabber's Victims, The Black Phone. One of the more surprising horror hits of 2022 was Scott Derrickson's The Black Phone, a tense story of a young boy kidnapped by a mysterious killer known only as the Grabber. Finney Blake wakes up in the basement of the Child Snatchers with seemingly no way to escape, his only hope being the titular phone that hangs on the wall, through which he is able to communicate with the spirits of the grabber's previous victims. Eventually, Finney is able to escape from his captor thanks to the sage words of wisdom from those dead victims. And while this is great news for him and his family, it's tough not to think about how the various other youngsters met their own grisly ends, alone and afraid. Number 4. Marty and Steve's parents found. From 2012 comes Found, a horror movie that's, well, something. Marty is a 12-year-old boy who lives with his mum, dad and older brother Steve, and one day, while going through Steve's stuff, discovers a bowling bag that contains a severed head. You see, Steve is actually a serial killer, motivated by racial hatred and inspired by an unrated movie called Headless, and who said horror movies were a bad influence. Things get more and more twisted for young Marty until Steve's actions are discovered by their father, leading Steve to incapacitate the rest of the family, with Marty waking up tied to a bed and with a ball gag in his mouth, all as he hears the sounds of his parents being brutally murdered in the next room. Having to listen to someone's loved ones get killed is one thing, but when that person is a young child, that's a whole new level of awful. Number 3. The cast of Gordy's Home. Nope. The third film from comedy legend and twisted maniac Jordan Peele, 2022's Nope is a multi-layered story about a mysterious alien that appears in the sky above the California desert. One of the themes of this movie is the mistreatment of animals by human beings, highlighted in a flashback sequence of Steven Yeun's character, Jupe. As a child actor, Jupe appeared on a sitcom called Gordy's Home, which was about an ordinary family living with a chimpanzee. Gordy, the chimp, was a nice ape most of the time, until one day he freaked out at the sound of a balloon popping. Jupe recalls hiding under a table as the animal brutally slaughtered the rest of the cast. Chimps are incredibly strong, known to rip people's faces off when threatened, so one can only imagine the horrors committed on this rampage. Poor Gordy is sadly shot dead by the police there, with the moral of the story being that wild animals should be left in the wild, not paraded out on TV for the purposes of light entertainment. Number 2. Nurse Alvis, Halloween 2, 1981. Another all-timer of a sequel, Halloween 2 is the perfect accompaniment to John Carpenter's Halloween, literally picking up the action in the immediate aftermath of the night he came home. With Laurie Strode in hospital after her first run-in with Michael Myers, the Shape is on a mission to hunt Laurie down and finish the job. And along the way, Michael of course amasses quite the impressive kill count, including one of the franchise's very best kills with Pamela Susan Shoop's Nurse Bailey. While we all got to see Nurse Bailey's hot tub demise in all its glory, that was far from the case for Nurse Virginia Alves. For Alves, her dead body is found strapped to a gurney, having been fitted with an IV and drained of all her blood. Kinda like someone trying to get the last drops out of a Capri Sun. Number 1. Nash, The Hitcher. With it rarely ending well in horror movies when a hitcher is picked up, well, apart from in The Fog of course, with Tom Atkins and Jamie Lee Curtis certainly having a fun old time, 1986's The Hitcher stars Rutger Hauer as a murderous nomad who receives a lift from the unsuspecting Jim Halsey. Rutger Hauer's John Ryder is, well, just pretty nuts, eagerly taunting his prey while causing as much mayhem as possible. And when Jim seeks shelter in a diner, he meets kindly waitress Nash, who unfortunately then becomes a pawn in Ryder's plan, as he kidnaps her and maniacally, sadistically suspends her by a rope that's attached to a truck and its trailer hitch, with Ryder in the cab. Should Ryder let go of the clutch, the truck will roll forward and rip poor Nash in half, which is exactly what happens, although the audience is spared of that visual. Still, it's not hard to picture how awful this must have been for Nash and for those watching.